Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to start building out a user's different profile pages. Let me explain what I mean. So here I am on the home page. If I visit my profile, we obviously are interested in building out, the followers page and the following page, right? And showing a list of relevant users and making these count values come to life. But before we even get to that, or I should say before we even worry about pulling in the correct data from the database, let's first think about the fact that this content that I'm selecting is going to be identical for all three of these pages, right? Whether you're viewing the posts link, or this link. This HTML is going to be identical, and also the queries that get us this data, right? The username, the avatar, the post count, the followers count, the following count, the code that checks to see whether you should see the follow or stop following button, the code that shows if you should see the manage avatar button or not. All of that is going to be identical. So in this video, I want to show you how I would set things up in a way to avoid duplication. So here's what I would do. I would begin by creating a Blade component called profile. And that would be, this section that I'm highlighting. And then this section down here, this could be the hollowed out, the area where you say $slot. Let me explain. So in VS Code, in our resources folder, and then in our views folder, we have a folder named components. And it needs to be named components, right? We just have the one component that's our layout. Well, on the components folder, I would just right click, choose new file, and name it profile.blade.php. In this new file, we would just borrow code from our profile posts.blade file. So go into profile posts, we're going to borrow code from this file, and now there are two different approaches. So we know that all three profile pages are going to need, the layout component. So you absolutely could just select every single thing in this file and move it over into your profile component. Or you can also nest components multiple layers deep. In other words, you could just borrow everything inside this file except for the layout sandwich, right? And then this file would reference both the layout component and the profile component. So there's no right or wrong way. Either approach would work beautifully. But I'm just going to take the approach that we know all of our profile pages need the layout component. So I would literally just select everything, Control A or Command A, take everything from this file, delete it, and then over in our new Blade component, our profile component, just paste in your clipboard. Cool. And then here's what I would do. Towards the bottom, you'll see a div with a class of list group, and then right above that you see a div that has a class of profile nav. So right below this class of profile nav, so right here, I would do this. Let's create a div and give it a class of profile-slot-content. There is absolutely nothing special about this name. I'm just making it up. And I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. Later in the course, we're going to circle back and use JavaScript to sort of turn this into a single page application. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're not going to work on that until sort of a bonus extra credit chapter. The main idea is that in this div, that's where you would include, double curly brackets, $slot. So don't worry, nothing that we're doing in the next few videos has anything to do with JavaScript. That will be an extra credit bonus feature later in the course. Cool. Now the idea is that this is the only part of the page that's actually going to change for the three pages. So then this is what I would do. Select this div that has a class of list group, and just select the one closing div. So you want essentially, the one div before the for each and then one div after the for each. Cut that into your clipboard, and that is the only content that would be unique for the, viewing the posts screen. So back in our profile post.blade, here's what you would do. You would start with an X sandwich, only we're not using our layout component. Now it would be X dash, and the name of the component is profile. So have a matching closing tag. In the middle of that sandwich, just paste in your clipboard. Cool. If you save that, and then be sure to save your component file as well. And then if we refresh on a user's profile screen, and we get an error message. So we cannot access, $avatar. So the idea here is that this file, profile posts, right? Within this blade template, we do have access to, $avatar. But then within our component, this component file, we don't have direct access to that. So here's what you can do. When we're calling x-profile, you can give it property. If you're used to React, this would be like giving it a prop or a property, right? So you could just say, like sky color equals blue. So if it's just a simple string of text that you're actually hard coding, you can use this syntax. But if you're trying to give it an actually dynamic PHP variable value, you would actually say colon and then the name of the attribute. So like :avatar equals quotes and then $avatar. So this syntax is just regular HTML. This is the syntax you need to use if you're using dynamic values. Cool. Now, as soon as we save this, it's going to complain about other missing variables, right? So if I refresh, now you would need to do the same thing with username. Don't worry, a little bit in this lesson, we're going to see a much more elegant way where we would not need to pass a bunch of different properties like this. But just so we appreciate the organization that we set up, let's go ahead and get this working. So, $username. It's probably also going to complain about, currently following. So, currently following equals quotes, $currently following. So if I save that and refresh, well, it's also complaining about post count. So you get the idea. Post count equals quotes, $post count. So we're just manually passing all of the needed variables from this direct blade template into our component. So if I save that, refresh, cool. Don't worry, I 100% promise by the end of this lesson, we are not going to have this messy syntax of needing to manually pass down a bunch of different props like this. However, for the time being, let's get these other two links up and running, at least, the different URL or routes, so that you can actually click to view different pages. So let's jump into our web.php routes file. And down at the very bottom, we have this comment, profile related routes. So let's just duplicate this route that's already down here. And on the duplicate copy, all you would do is just after the curly brackets, but before the quote, say / maybe followers, right? So it would be like /profile /Brad /followers if you click on this link. And then we can do the same thing. Well, first let's fill in the controller method name. Instead of profile, it could be, profile followers. And then duplicate that line. On this final copy, it would just be, /following. And then the method name could be profile following. Cool. Now let's just go set up controller methods with these names, profile followers and profile following. So in our user controller, we already have a function named profile. Now this function is set up for the blog post list, right? It's going to show you any and all blog posts for this user. That's okay, we can adjust that later. But for now, let's let a little bit of duplicate code build up before we try to fix the duplication. So I would literally just duplicate this function that's named profile, and right below it, just name the new duplicate copy, profile followers. And then right below that, just paste it in, duplicate it again, and name this one profile following. Cool, and then we would just want each one to actually return a different blade template. So the first one, the profile function, that can just return a view of profile posts. This next function, profile followers, let's have that return a view of profile dash followers. And then as you might have guessed, for profile following, have that return a blade template of profile dash following. Now, let's just go create duplicate blade views, right? So in your views folder, we already have profile posts.blade.php. Just copy this and duplicate this file. So I'm going to create a brand new view and name it profile-followers.blade.php. Just paste in your clipboard, hit save. We can adjust this a little bit later to actually, show a list of users instead of blog posts. Do the same thing one more time, create a brand new view, name it profile-following.blade.php. Paste in your clipboard, hit save. Cool. So now let's just go adjust these href values so that when you click on, followers or following, it actually takes you somewhere. So that would be in our profile.blade.php component. For me, it's around line 26. We see the 3 links. So let's just fill these in. So the first href value, instead of hashtag, this would be, slash profile slash, and then, double curly brackets, and it would just be $username. For this next one, it would be slash profile slash, curly brackets, username, slash followers. And then to save typing, you could just take this value, use it for this third link, and just change followers to following. Let's give that a save. And now if we refresh, I should be able to click on followers. Cool, nothing actually changes, but notice it takes us to that URL and we see the exact same content. For now, that's perfect. I can click on following as well. Perfect, it takes us to a new page. Now, before we worry about actually showing new and relevant content down here for each of the 3 links, let's first set it up so that when you click on these links, it actually looks visually, from a CSS standpoint, selected, right? Like when you click on following, this gray border should now be around following.